certain digital devices have invisible inks. Now, the very nature of an invisible ink is that you can't see it. So even though we have the invisible layer here and we have invisible in our artwork, we cannot see that. Invisible inks work with a UV black light. So for example, if you have like a passport, when you go through the passport scanners, it will shine a UV black light onto it and it will illuminate certain areas of your design. So we can use the invisible ink as a security feature. People are using on tickets for like events, or as we're going to show here on this passport file. And with a lot of our video tutorials, we're not just going to show you the main effect, which is the invisible. We're also going to show you a few other different effects that are built into that file, because it's all about embellishments. And if we can get reinforced like that information about how to use things, then that's the best thing for you. So we can do a mask, so we can mask out that design if we want to. And so this is basically a die line mask, so you'd use our mask layer process, which is a tutorial to explain how to do that. And you can then mask out any shape, so it could be a piece of packaging, or we're just using it to block out the rest of the design. So this is just a quick visualization of a passport, and we have a few different things. So first of all, anything with a warning sign basically says it needs attention. You've got to set up that layer. So in this case, our spot color is called foil, but it doesn't know what color foil we want to use. So we're going to go in here, and from our foil we have a set of predefined ones. I'm just going to use something like bronze on this one. I'll make a bronze foil, and if I wanted to, I could change with the settings. And as we always teach people, you can save them as a preset, so the next time you come in, you can then load that preset up. So if you've got a specific colored foil that you're matching to, maybe you've done a custom colored foil, maybe it's slightly paler, maybe it's a bit darker, a bit grayer, whatever it is, you can save that as a preset, and then the next time you come in, you can load that up so you don't have to keep matching things over and over. And this way you can build a database of all of your different types of foils. One thing you can also do with these as well is you can export these presets. So for example, if you're a printer and you have a customer that's using this software and you want them to have your presets for your materials or your coatings or whatever that you specified, you can export the preset as a JSON file. Give that to your customer. The customer can then go to import, and they can import your settings into the Visualis software, and that way they can then work with the same settings. So you could call it, I don't know, printer foil A or whatever it's going to be, and then that way you can communicate it with your customers. So you can share presets around as well. Okay, on the embossing, we've got the embossing height, so we'll put some embossing on this 3D kind of like dotted area here. We can change that, so you can see how we're changing the embossing effect and the bevel width on there. We have a sculptured varnish down at the bottom. So let's just move in, you'll see there we've got that 3D glossy varnish. Now maybe we've put a spot coating over the picture, maybe it might even be an invisible coating. Some people I've noticed on certain things like credit cards, they're doing an invisible coating like on the Barclay card. On the back there's like a little dove symbol that's done in a holographic effect with a varnish over the top which reacts under light, which I've noticed. So maybe you want to simulate that. So on this one we've got a varnish, but maybe the varnish level is not quite as intense, so we can play around with that intensity and simulate putting a varnish over there. So the varnish is different to the 3D Duplo coating, or the sculptured varnish, or the Scodex. So in here we've got a spot color called sculptured varnish, just to show we've got different names built in, and again you can play with all the different settings inside of there. So now we've got our 3D raised effect. Let's just zoom in on that one so you can see it. We've got those little raised dimply effects, so that would have like tactile feel. So when you're moving your finger across of it, it's a little bit like braille, so you can feel it. You've got the lesser coating on the person's face, we've got the foil, and we've got the embossing in the digits up here. But where's that invisible ink? Okay, so now what we need to do is switch on the UV invisible. I'm just going to turn off the mask so you can see how this works. So we've got white paper in the background. Switch on the UV light and it illuminates the page and then shows up where all that invisible is. So in this case, the invisible is basically behind the pictures, well, masked out from the picture and from the foil, so it's in certain areas and it'll only show you in that. And with the invisible ink, we can change that to a different color. So maybe I'm using the HP Indigo and I'm using the blue invisible ink. Well, I can change that as well. We can change the intensity. Maybe it's not quite as bright. Depending on different machines and different inks, you can basically control that. Maybe it's a lot brighter. And the other one that's common on the HP Indigo is a yellow, and again, depending on how these colours interact with the background is how these UV inks will also glow as well. So you'll find that certain colours work better on different backgrounds. So when you're thinking about your design and what ink to use, it's also quite important. Now these are all basically pre-configured for you. You can basically save presets. I'm just going to put that back to red. Let me just reset my defaults. Okay, so got my effect. So I can now switch off the UV light and I've got my design. So that's how the invisible layer works. If you have any questions, please do reach out to us for assistance.